To Send It Rising Live. This is the 347th episode. You've heard me say it before. I do not believe in coincidences. I believe similar to almost planets, we all have this sort of gravitational pull in our life, and we find ourselves in the orbit of certain people. And this seems chaotic and random, but I do not believe that it is. A good friend of mine, former guest on the show, Rev Ciancio, ended up inviting me to this really cool event. The latter half of the event was filled with all of these influencers taking pictures of all of these food items, and it was incredible and awesome. The former part of the event, I just so happened to be sitting at a table with a whole bunch of really cool people, all in the restaurant industry, and sitting adjacent across from me was an incredible gentleman. We had a fantastic conversation. I said, "Hey, how about you be a guest on my show?" He said, "Let's do it." So he has a company. He's an MIT graduate. And this company allows for fluctuation of delivery prices. And so it's almost like it economizes, if that makes any sense. It makes like a little economy out of every restaurant. And so if it's 620 and there's a bajillion orders going through, prices can reflect that. It tracks like their best selling item. It uses all of this great data to maximize profit for restaurants and make it good for the customer, based on time and all that sort of stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a real treat because our guest on the show today is the one and only Nenye Anagbogu.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing?
Let's go.
Awesome, go time.
So I'm not an MIT graduate. What's that like?
It was great. I think that a lot of people really think that MIT is just like full of a bunch of nerds, which I mean, 100% it is. But I think it's the you'd be surprised the amount of like social acumen folks have, and I think it's a very fun place. And being in the Cambridge area, Boston area, there's a lot of other colleges around town, so you really get to be part of a good community there. I really loved it there, and yeah, I mean, it gets cold and work is hard, but I think it's worth it.
Hey, I mean, it's one of those feathers in your cap. When you say you're an MIT grad, people take you seriously, which is always nice, and that's a lifelong thing. So you earned it, which is really neat. I live in the world of mostly business to business service based marketing, right? So attorneys and plumbers and electricians and like brick and mortar stores, that sort of stuff. I feel like business to business software has the opportunity to make people very rich if it goes well, and you get a lot of people signing up for it. So it's very scalable. It's super easy to scale. It's just you got to talk to restaurants, and restaurants are notoriously penny pinching ish. And so can you talk about that? Are these people investing? Do they understand that this is a profit center for them? How do you sell them on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a variety of things. So, I mean, restaurants, and rightfully so, are very cognizant about their margins, their price, and ultimately, what we found and what we do is, we've used that as an ability to help them make more money. The whole point is to help restaurants be able to see larger margins and to do it in a way that is technologically advanced and positive for the consumer. And so, when we can talk about potentially increasing your delivery sales up to, 30, 40, 50% just by doing dynamic pricing, that could have significant impacts to your margin, even if it's only on your delivery, if you have a brick and mortar. But, nowadays there are a lot of restaurants that are going, full on delivery where 100% of their orders are delivery. And so, we really wanted to help restaurants boost their revenue and just make it clear that that's the case. Now, to be completely frank, changing your prices, when you go up and down is something that I think that a lot of restaurants can be quite scared about, initially. I think every restaurant, especially, due to margins, due to their customer feedback, to the brand, I think every restaurant cares a lot about their pricing, but very few restaurants think that they're 100% priced right. And they think or they think that they could have a better consumer experience by having a different price. And they want to make those price changes, but they're very hesitant to make those price changes because they're not backed by the data, or they don't know what's going to happen. And so we help bridge that gap of trust by providing analytics that help them do that, and then also just taking over that. And what we've seen is that people not only see increases in their sales, but they also can see positive customer feedback. And so, I mean, the journey is still underway, and we're continuously getting better. We're not perfect, nobody is, but I think that we've been able to make restaurants happy, and looking to continue to do so.
Yeah. So when it comes to pricing variability, it's always variable. If you think about it, the next time you come up with a menu, it's going to change most likely. When you opened, the pricing was different. So what we're talking about is a change in the frequency and the updating of price. If you take a look at, like Bitcoin, for example, when you have massive fluctuations, this is kind of the new normal. We're just taking the time between price fluctuations and we're making it smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think culturally, we're all going to get used to this sort of fluidity where technologically it just wasn't really possible back in the day. But now that it is, you're leading the charge on that sort of fluidity. Now, customers, I can see them complaining, going, "Hey, this is too expensive. It's $7.15. They've got a million orders." That would be the main complaint. But don't they also benefit from when things are slow and they can get in and they can get cheaper prices if they order on times when the restaurant isn't as popular?
Exactly. I mean, exactly. I would say that the consumer in an online environment, we could talk about the in-person environment, but definitely in an online environment, the consumer, folks, myself, yourselves are very, conditioned for dynamic pricing. We see dynamic pricing in, pretty much all aspects of life, and even sometimes in restaurants, but not, very prevalent. And so we're kind of just bringing that to the space. But there are benefits for the consumer. While we can you can help support your favorite restaurants by giving them a little bit more money now and then when they're really working hard to provide you food. But you can also benefit by getting discounts and breaks and have that price meet you where you are, depending on what's going on in the market, what's going on at the restaurant, and so forth. And so ultimately, just trying to drive for higher utility overall, a more economical balance point by adjusting that frequency as you mentioned. But we're not doing it in the blind. We're really trying to back it with data, and we're trying to be very cognizant of how consumers feel. I mean, we're also consumers ourselves, and we don't want to create an experience that even we would be very upset with. And so we have guide rails and a variety of things to help folks customize and tweak things to match their brand, but also keep it on brand for the consumers. And so that's kind of how we think about it.
So the delivery makes sense to me because I'm sitting in my pajamas. I'm debating whether or not I want to watch Tiger King, the new episodes, but I'm on the Great British Baking Show. And, it's a little chilly outside. And, I'm like, you know what? I want some Chinese. That's what I want. But I don't want to move. Do you understand me? I want to move. I want to minimize the amount that I want to move. And so I pull up Google and it's got my order already in there. Right. So that's how I order Chinese food. Is this only working if I go to the restaurant's website? Or does it auto-populate? I think it does. Does it not? Does it go on Google menu and all that sort of stuff? Help me understand where the pricing is reflected. Everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, so the pricing is reflected typically right now on the different delivery platforms that the restaurant uses. So if they're saying, if they're using like an Uber Eats or Doordash or Grubhub or Postmates or one of those services, typically that's what reflects their third-party delivery. We're looking to and building things to go first party as well, which would be like whenever you order directly from the restaurant's website, but we don't have that there yet, and so that's kind of how it works. And so you should be able to just go on and you'll get that cart. It'll be populated with the price that it's supposed to be at that time, and depending on your mood, you're gonna decide, I do want Chinese, or maybe I want something else, or so forth. But the goal is to allow that pricing to make sense for your mentality at the time.
How hungry are you really? Should you go shopping on an empty stomach, Nenye, or is that just a bad idea?
I think that if you're hungry, you should eat.
Truer words have never been spoken.
If you're hungry, you should eat. If you're not hungry, maybe take a snack or something. I don't know. Support your restaurants. Restaurants need it. I'm a big fan of restaurants. So
yeah, and they're notorious for just grinding out an existence. It's like there are restaurateurs who make a lot of money and they're very successful. But I mean, the word restaurant in a business context always includes the words razor thin margins. Always, like anytime you talk about it.
But they have a passion about it. I mean, so like, for me, I worked in restaurants You know, before sauce, I was working as a, not directly before, but I was working as a taco garnisher, at taco spot, and I saw a lot of the management there, and a lot of work put in there. My co-founder Colin, like his uncle was doing an ice cream shop, he was working there, and doing a variety of different things in the food and business space. And I think that one thing that's always stuck with us is how hard folks work, and how much people put their passion into things, despite the margins being thin. And so, I think that whatever we can do to help restaurants make more money and continue to be able to survive longer, especially during these times, and deliver on not only what their promise is to the consumer, but also what the vision was for their brand when they started the restaurant. I think it makes us happy.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, food, love, these two things are very closely related. So I'm a restaurant owner, and I'm afraid that my customers are going to get angry at me. That the prices are different in store versus delivery. I'm panicking, man. I'm freaking out. And I'm talking to you. How do you justify it?
Yeah, I mean, so the reality is that we've been changing prices on restaurants for over a year now, or just over a year now. Very frequently, every hour, and we've seen, every hour on like all the items, it's like thousands and thousands to hundreds of thousands of price changes. And what we've seen is that we've seen ratings and reviews actually increase. We've seen retention actually increase for stores. And so, the thing that we can do is assure you that like the data helps there. Now, the reality is that like that's not, fearing for your customer retention is it's not often just fully data backed. It can also be very intuitive, very natural. It is a change in perspective. And so we're constantly trying to track that as well, and just ensure that we continue to convey the positive numbers. And we also like to give controls. So, if you feel like, the range of price changes can be too high for your consumer, then, we will allow you to adjust that. Now, the cool thing is that moving forward, what, we don't necessarily have to build today, but what we would love to build, as we start to become more advanced, is the ability to, differentiate between who are your loyal regular customers and who are your new customers, and price differently accordingly, and to give additional benefit or additional discounts to, some of the more loyal customers, to allow the pricing to make sense there.
Ooh, I love that. That is, that right there is the natural evolution of this, where you can say, this person has ordered in the silver package frequency, right? Which is once per week for the past 4 weeks, spending more than X dollar amount, and for that reason, they're no longer affected by XYZ price increase at a certain time, or they get XYZ deal.
Yeah, they get the discounts when they apply. They don't get the increases when they apply either. Or maybe we'll offset some things that go to your loyal customers to new customers. And obviously, there's a balance, between. But I think that there's a huge opportunity to really bolster and actually add additional stickiness to your loyal customers as a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my daughter wants me to not be thinking about anything else. She wants me to be focused on her, right? And whatever, you know what I mean? It's just like, Dada, don't just pay attention to me, basically. Just, be with me, right? And that is an ancient, deep-seated, perhaps even eternal human need, or need. I mean, there's some dude who befriended a crocodile, and his wife is like, "Mirror the crocodile." He's like, "I'll take the crocodile." So this dude is like best friends with the crocodile, and so it just goes to show that crocodiles too. You know what I mean? Like they want the love, and so the point is that if you can get that burst of serotonin and dopamine when someone's going through a transaction because the restaurant's saying, "Hey, we love you. We really appreciate you doing," and then you tell them what they did. Like, "You've ordered XYZ and we love you for that. And so here's this thing we can do for you." It doesn't need to be a person making eye contact with you. It can be just, like a fuzzy panda bear with a heart on it on a screen, and that'll do the trick. So I love that evolution of this. I think that could be really strong for what you said,
Yeah.
referred to as stickiness.
Yeah, I mean, to even take a step further, what we ultimately want to be is we want to be a growth engine for restaurants to be able to scale and really achieve higher chances of success than they do now. And we think that dynamic pricing is one of the ways of getting there. It's one of the more modern ways of getting folks towards that future. But I think that there could be a lot more enhancements around the way that folks communicate with their consumers, whether it's through marketing, whether it's through certain touch points with their clients that are enabled by the technology that we have to build to get dynamic pricing working, that could really help restaurants in the future.
Do you think like a partnership with like a Doordash or one of these companies is in order at some point where they've got their restaurant relationships already?
Yeah.
You can just, you can pitch them and then they either acquire you or you just, become some sort of engine for them.
I think that we're already working through some of the delivery platforms. I think that working with them more is something that we're always amenable to. I think whatever works for the restaurant will work with us. I think, the thing about the delivery platforms is that a lot of restaurants like being on the delivery platforms because of some of the access that they get, but a lot of restaurants also would prefer to have a lot of their ordering occur first party as well. There's commissions. And so, what we would like to do is be able to support both types of restaurants in both ways. We've started with the delivery platforms because it's easier to get started and really get up and running, and it's still effective. But we would also like to support restaurants on their home turf, where they get to make the lion's share of the money as well. And so, yeah. But I mean, I definitely think that partnerships with them, partnerships with aggregators like Charlie, or partnerships with other services, I think really help.
Nice. So menus in real time, in like walking into the restaurant itself. Do you touch that space, where they give you a tablet as opposed to a paper menu, or they're scanning something and now there's dynamic pricing on that? Is that a thing?
Yeah. So, I mean, in-person dynamic pricing via the online ordering apps is definitely something that's going to come in the future.
Okay.
I think that in terms of like how that works, I think it could still be, highly effective and beneficial to the consumer, especially, if it's combined with like in-person customer service. Which, I think it could be very powerful, that sync between that and pricing.
Yeah, I think so too. So for some reason, my QR scanner never works on my phone, but that has nothing to do with this conversation. I find it frustrating. Like I'm old. I'm like, just give me the menu. It's like pulling teeth to get a menu nowadays. I just needed a new phone. I got one coming in the mail.
You got one? Are you Apple or Android?
You know what? Everything's Apple except for my phone. And then people pass judgment on me. They're like, look at this plebeian, this proletariat commoner with a Samsung phone. My son loves taking my phone, and he dropped it the other day. He's so good. Years and years and years he's been using my phone, but yeah, it butterfingers. And so anyway, I got that.
Yeah, they recently added I don't know if it started because of like the huge popularity of QR codes, but like the new iOS is definitely a lot better at like picking out QR codes and showing you different QR code tags on, because it's actually a lot more than before. I'm curious to see what like NFC does. I saw recently, I was at a restaurant in New York just the other day, and they had this like really cool like it had a QR code on it, but it was also like NFC tap, so you could just like put your phone on it and you didn't have to like fumble around with the camera, and it would just automatically come up on your phone.
What's NFC an acronym for?
I forget the exact explicit
what does it mean? Just like you hold it up to it? Is that
it's this frequency that your phones can emit from the back. Various technologies can emit to communicate together.
Right.
So like you may have seen those things where people have like phones and they like put them together and you get like information from them.
Yeah.
Or like share contacts. It's using NFC technology, or how you pay with Apple Pay and all that stuff. It's typically NFC. But I saw that they had like a NFC tag on the table, and I think that could be an even easier solution than QR codes that can be very effective. So
Yeah. I mean, in theory, QR codes are super simple. It's just for some reason my phone just hates them. It just absolutely hates them. Like,
you
work.
gotta pull out your camera. I mean, like when you get a menu, like you get the menu, right? It's just like up there. You open it, and it's easy.
Right.
QR code, like you have to worry about Wi-Fi. You have to like go scan it. Like open up your app. You got to like have your phone up. It's good. I love the QR codes. I think that they're fantastic. I'm just saying that like I think that there's even an opportunity to like make them even more easy. I think NFC is really cool.
Yeah. Thing. So this is getting me thinking about other economies too, because like I mentioned, all menu pricing fluctuates. It just fluctuates incredibly slowly, and so this increases the fluctuation rate where it makes sense, and that's all it's doing. It's not as if menus are eternal. Menu pricing is eternal. So it makes me wonder about just all the different economies where things do change. Like if you're a plumber, for example, you could just have different pricing based on how busy you are. Like when people quote, like for example, with my business, digital marketing, we're coming up with quotes based on the conversations that we're having with people. The downside to that is like I have clients from like 4 years ago where like they got a smoking deal and I just don't raise their prices. You know what I mean? I probably should, but they're pretty set in stone. Like once we get working with clients. Are there any other industries that come to mind where you think that this could be where fluctuation in pricing might make any sense?
Well, I think that in most industries, prices do fluctuate already. I think in terms of like the frequency, it really matters when you have a decent volume of orders. So when this happens, like, I mean, everyone knows like Amazon, people know flights and plane tickets.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yep.
Even just like typical retail, people know like I think for a lot of places where there's just a frequency, it's not like revenue management or price changes or adjustments is something that we're inventing completely. I would say that is something that we are applying more to restaurants, but I think that it's very prevalent. Like when you really sit back and think about it, like the majority of things that you buy are fluctuating.
That is very true.
But I think your point about frequency is very important. The frequency does matter. It's not typically fluctuating, a ton like every day. Amazon does. Like Amazon will make millions of price changes a day. But for a lot of folks, they don't necessarily make it at that frequency. But I mean, I think this is something that you will continue to see in more places, for sure.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see just the sort of global data. Like if there were, say, for example, Amazon had some API of their like economy, I bet you could buy and sell stocks for different companies based off of the data that you got from Amazon. If let's say they passed legislation and Amazon had to publicly disclose price fluctuations for their products, you could probably tie together like the cost of some material to, you know what I mean? Like it could get really gnarly, and then you just get an AI to do it, to like try to make these connections, and then buy and sell stocks or buy and sell certain things based off of, because you would get a real sense of the marketplace if you had access to all that. Ooh, this reminds me, Zillow is in a little bit of hot water. There's a bunch of people on TikTok that are calling them out, all these realtors, because what they're doing, according to these TikTokers, is they are going into a neighborhood and purchasing a bunch of property, and then they're fixing up one of them and then listing it at this inflated rate because they have all the data. Like they know who's buying in what areas at what times, and then they can list that as the comp. And so they're getting into real estate investing, but they have this huge advantage based on the data that they have and the fact that they own Zillow.com. And so people are getting a little bit crabby about that.
They're upset because of their buying them, or they're upset because they're
artificially raising prices. They're artificially raising prices. So basically what they're doing is like, let's say they bought a $300,000 home. They fix it up big time, list it for 360. They know the hot areas where people are willing to pay that much. They know that people can pay that much, but they bought up a whole bunch of homes for 280 that they're now listing for 320. And they're using that comp on that 360 property as a way to inflate all the prices on all the other ones.
I see. Wow. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I didn't either. Thank you, TikTok.
Thank you, TikTok. Yeah, I
So
did not realize. I mean, but I see that that certainly will frustrate folks.
yeah. So
Using a combo of a fixed house to increase the prices of unfixed houses. I can see how that could piss people off.
yeah, yeah, totally. So all right. So how do you reach out to people? Obviously, you're meeting restaurant folks, business owners, restaurant owners, in networking events. Where else do you find these people? I mean, do you ever just walk into a restaurant?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you talk about restaurant sales, a lot of it is very operational, hand to hand. Going out and talking to restaurants directly when you can. Marketing does work on different platforms. We also do partnerships and talking to other folks, and so I think that's like the typical trifecta is like going after restaurants directly, making a lot of calls, like making talking to them on the street, and then also balancing that with trying to reach folks via partnerships and events. So
Hmm.
I think it's good, and I think that it's not something that hasn't been done before. So there's folks that are really experienced with how to do restaurant outreach, but it's always something that can be improved. It can be tailored depending on what you do. So for example, for us, a lot of restaurants really things. It can be very easy for us. One of the things that we pride ourselves is by trying to make it very easy for restaurants to get onboarded. Sometimes it could take a little bit longer, but for the most part, a restaurant can onboard within a day when they come with us, because the goal is to keep it as easy and as efficient as possible, by just integrating directly through your accounts. And so with that, just getting on a phone call, just one phone call can be enough sometimes to really get started with a restaurant. And so yeah, I mean, I'd say that like everyone deals with just trying to reach out to restaurants, and I'm always happy to talk to new restaurants. But yeah, those are all the ways.
That's right. So if you know someone, you listener, who owns a restaurant, or you yourself own a restaurant, why don't you reach out to Nenye? Nenye, why don't you tell them where they should go to chat with you, sell them?
Cool. Yeah, I mean, if you want to reach out to us, come to saucepricing.com and reach out there. We'll definitely receive you. And then also, if you want to email me, Nenye at saucepricing.com. Feel free. I'm happy to chat.
Yep, that's Nenye, Nenye at SAUCEPRICING.com.
Yes.
Yay, I did it. Ladies and gentlemen, Send It Rising Live, you know the drill. YouTube.com/Send It Rising if you want to join us for the live show. If you are like most and you're listening after the fact on iTunes, Spotify, or many of the other podcast platforms that we happen to be hosting the show. We love you and we appreciate you. I hope you're having the best December of your life. Nenye, do you want to leave them with some entrepreneurial words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about starting a business and you want to do something you don't know where to start, the answer is to just do it. And that most people that achieve without feeling like they could have achieved, they just kind of do it, and they fight through the anxiousness. I read recently a LinkedIn post by Justin Kahn, founder of Twitch, where he said that he founded his very first terrible business, and he was very happy that he did that because that's what helped him start his future terrible, then not so terrible businesses. And so, yeah, and that's from an entrepreneur. That's what I would say. As far as like sauce goes, I'm really enjoying the journey, and happy to continue it. And if anyone is interested in being part of that journey with us, let me know.
All right. Thank you, Nenye. We appreciate having you on the show. We'll see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.